Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel and welcome back to this video. This video is part of the new series that we had started, and we did the first video of that yesterday wherein we covered the introduction of the book that we are going to be focusing on for the next couple of days. And we had mentioned yesterday it's going to be about the wit and wisdom of Charles Munger or Charlie Munger. Yesterday, we had gone through the introduction of the book, and today we are going to focus on the next part of the book. The next part of the book is the talks given by Charlie Munger. And as you can see on your screen, there are 11 talks that Charlie gave. And we'll go through all the talks one by one, and we'll share with you the highlighted parts and the parts that we found insightful from those particular talks. So let's get started. And here are the insights from the first talk. The first talk is focused upon four particular factors which Charlie discusses, which are to be avoided to avoid misery in life. The important part out here is that he talks about what do you have to do to be miserable in life. So it's an inverse that we are talking about. Firstly, he says be unreliable. The second part is wherein he says that my second prescription for misery is to learn everything you possibly can from your own experience, minimizing what you can learn vicariously from good and bad experiences of the others, living or dead. The prescription is a sure shot producer of misery and second rate achievement. So, what he's trying to tell you is first and foremost, be reliable. Second, try to learn from the experiences of others. It might be good or it might be bad. It might be from people who are not there as of now. You can learn from their books, you can learn from all the stories that are being passed upon. And the third thing that he says is that my third prescription to you for misery is to go down and stay down. When you get down, your first, second, or third severe reverse in the battle of life. Because there is only so much adversity out there, even for the lucky ones, even for the wise ones, this will guarantee that in due course you will become permanently mired in misery. So, what he's trying to say is that life will knock you down. You will run out of luck in some circumstances. What is important for you is not to be miserable and not to keep on living in that circle, but try and come out of it. And the fourth thing that he says is that my final prescription to you for a life of fuzzy thinking is to ignore a story they told me when I was very young about a rustic who said, I wish I knew where I was going to die, then I'll never go there. Pretty self explanatory, because this is wherein you are sharing your ignorance at a vast level, wherein you say that if I knew that this was something that was going to happen, I was never going to go there. So this particular thing is very self-explanatory. I'm not going to delve deeper into that. Now we have the talk one revisited. So as we said before, what Charlie Munger is trying to say is that reliability is essential for progress in life, while quantum mechanics is unlearnable for a vast majority. Is that reliability is something that can be learned, and reliability can be learned to a great advantage by almost anyone. This brings us to the second part. Now, what we have done in the previous parts, what I have done here is that I have highlighted the parts that I found most insightful, and I'm sharing those parts with you. So, continuing on that tradition, the thing that I really wanted to share with you from this particular talk was that there is a great lesson in microeconomics to discriminate between when technology is going to help you and when it's going to kill you. And for most people, they do not get this straight in their heads. But for a fellow like Buffett, he's talking about Warren Buffett. For example, when we were in the textile business, which is a terrible commodity business, we were making low-end textiles, which is a real commodity product. And then one day, people came to Warren and said they've invented a new loom and they think it will do twice as much work as our old ones. And to this, Warren replied, gee, I hope this doesn't work, because if it does, I'm going to close the mill. And he meant it. What was he thinking? He was thinking that it's a lousy business. We are earning substandard returns and keeping it open just to be nice to the elderly workers. But we are not going to be putting in huge amounts of new capital into a lousy business. And he knew that the huge productivity increases that would come from a better machine introduced into the production of a commodity product would all go for the benefit of the buyer of the textiles. Nothing was going to stick to the ribs of the owners. In all cases, the people who sell machinery, and by and large, even the internal bureaucrats urging you to buy the equipment, show you projections with the amount you'll save at the current prices with the new technology. However, they do not do the second step of the analysis, which is to determine how much of it is going to stay with you and how much of it is going to flow through to the customer. I have never seen a single projection incorporating that second step in my life, and I see them all the time. Rather, they always read, "This capital outlay will save you so much money and it will pay for itself in 3 years." So you keep buying things that will pay for themselves in 3 years, and after 20 years of doing it, somehow you have earned a return of only 4% per annum. That's the textile business, and it isn't the machines that want better. It's just that the savings didn't come to you. The cost reductions came through all right, but the benefit of the cost reduction didn't go to the guy who bought the equipment. It is such a simple idea, it is so basic, and yet it is often forgotten. Now, this is the first model of microeconomics that he has discussed. Now, let's move on to the second model of microeconomics that he discusses. He says that there is another model of microeconomics, wherein he says that when technology moves as fast as it does in a civilization like ours, you get a phenomenon that I call competitive destruction. And when these new businesses come in, there are huge advantages for the early birds. When you are an early bird, there is a model that I call surfing. When the surfer gets up, catches the wave, and just stays there, he can go on for a long, long time. But if he gets off the wave, he becomes mired in the shallows. But people get long runs when they are right on the edge of the wave, whether it's Microsoft or Intel or all kinds of people, including National Cash Register in the early days. And then he talks about competence. He says that every person is going to have a circle of competence, and it's going to be very hard to enlarge that circle. So you have to figure out what is it that your own aptitude lies in. What is it that you are competent in? If you play games wherein other people have aptitude and you don't, you are going to lose. And that's as close to certain as predictions you can make. You have to figure out as to where do you have an edge, and you have to go and play within your own circle of competence. The next thing he talks about is how many insights do you need? He says that, well, I'll argue that you don't need many insights in a lifetime. If you look at Berkshire Hathaway and all the accumulated billions, the top 10 insights account for most of it. And that's with a very brilliant man, that is Warren Buffett. Warren's a lot more able than I am and very disciplined, devoting his lifetime to it. And I don't mean to say that he has had only 10 insights. What I'm saying is that most of the money came from 10 insights. Now, here's a story that he tells about Warren Buffett. He says that when Warren lectures at business schools, he says, "I could improve your ultimate financial welfare by giving you a ticket with only 20 slots in it so that you can have 20 punches, representing all the investments that you can do in a lifetime. And once you have punched through the card, you couldn't make any more investments at all." He says that under those rules, you'd be really, really careful about what you did, and you'd be forced to load up on what you'd really thought about, and so you'll do much better. Again, this is a concept that seems perfectly obvious to me. That's what Charlie is saying. And to Warren, it seems perfectly obvious. But this is one of the very few business clauses in the United States wherein anybody will be saying so. It just isn't the conventional wisdom. And to this, Charliemunger says that to me it is obvious that the winner has to bet very, very selectively. It's been obvious to me since the very early days of my life. And I don't know why it is not obvious to other people. I think the reason why we get into such idiocracies in investment management is best illustrated by a story I tell about a guy who sold fishing tackle. I asked him, "My God, they're purple and green. Do fish really take these lures?" And he said, "Mister, I do not sell to the fish." Investment managers are in the position of that fishing tackle salesman. They're like the guy who was selling salt to the guy who already has too much salt. And as long as the guy will buy more salt, they'll sell more salt. But that isn't what ordinarily works for the buyer in investment advice. And this brings us to the wrap-up of the talk too. Now here's a Q&A that was done with Charlie, wherein he was asked, how do you and Warren evaluate an acquisition candidate? And he said that we are light on financial yardsticks. We apply a lot of subjective criteria. Can we trust the management? Can it harm our reputation? What can go wrong? Do we understand the business? Does it require capital infusions to keep it going? What is the expected cash flow? We don't expect linear growth. Cyclicity is fine with us as long as the price is appropriate. A second question is, what should a young person look for in a career? So Charlie replies, I have 3 basic rules. Meeting all 3 is nearly impossible, but you should try anyway. First, don't sell anything you want by yourself. Don't work for anyone you don't respect and admire. And thirdly, work only with people you enjoy. And then he says that I've been incredibly fortunate in my life. With Warren, I've had all three. The third question is, what overall life advice would you give for young people? And then he replies, spend each day trying to be a little wiser than you were when you woke up. Discharge your duties faithfully and well. Step by step, you get ahead, but not necessarily in fast sprints. But you build discipline by preparing for fast sprints. Slug it out 1 inch at a time, day by day. And at the end of the day, if you live long enough, like most people, you will get out of life what you really deserve. Life and its various passages can be hard, brutally hard. The three things I have found helpful in coping with the challenges are: have low expectations, have a sense of humor, surround yourself with the love of family and friends. Above all, live with change and adapt to it. If the world didn't change, I'll still have a 12 handicap. So, with this, we wanted to wrap up this particular video wherein we have shared with you the insights from Talk 1 and Talk 2. Do stay tuned in for the next one. Thank you.